Yes, I'm sorry. Are you here just to listen? Yeah. Okay, because that's what you're supposed to run. I'm sorry, no, nobody told you that. I apologize. I should have been paying attention when you came in. But if it, then let's go back to you, Rose.
Rose Burnett, ECBH.
Paula Cox-Fishman. I'm a volunteer advocate and guardian of my older sister who has profound mental retardation and is totally blind. I'm very good at this.
So, the first thing, and we didn't bring you a copy of the minutes, but hopefully you got a copy. Were there any corrections to the last meeting's minutes? No, you didn't get a copy? Then we did that. We'll get you a copy.
Okay.
So, Frank is not here yet. He's running a little late, so that's why we're going to switch up this agenda just a little bit as far as the proposed diaper limit. And so we'll switch to the respite service definition. So Kenneth and Rachel are going to be doing all three of our definition reviews. We might split it up, do the respite and go back to the diapers. I'm not exactly right, did it? But we'll go back to the diapers when Frank comes.
Okay. And we're actually going to start with Assistive Technology because we have a PowerPoint for this. And we sent out Assistive Technology and Respite to you guys a few weeks ago. We haven't gotten that much feedback. We just want to kind of go over the main points to see if you guys have any questions or thoughts as we go ahead. So this is Assistive Technology. So the feedback we've gotten on the front end was do not include exhaustive lists, use broad categories to allow for flexibility as technology changes, allow for repairs of equipment, allow for connectivity for various things, and increase the funds available to assistive technology in the base budget. So we've tried to do that in the definition. So what is assistive technology? It's a service that seeks to increase and maintain, improve the functional capabilities. It can be used to purchase, lease, or repair. The items requested, though, they need to be recommended by an appropriate professional to make sure that it meets medical necessity and the individual actually needs it. And then we did these basic categories, which was similar to the first definition that we showed you, but instead of having the examples and exhaustive lists, we just left them as these broader care categories. So aids to daily living, gross motor, environmental controls, positioning, alert monitoring, sensory, communication aids that aren't covered by the state plan or the DME list, mobility aids not covered by DME, and nutritional medical supplies that aren't covered. So we tried to make it a little bit more broad so that the individual's needs could actually be addressed and we don't just simply look at the definition in the list. So why are we doing this? Again, we think assistive technology should be used as much as possible because it increases and maintains and improves a person's capabilities, so it can lead to someone becoming more independent. Again, maximizes independence, enables the person to live in his home, his or her choice, so we can support people more in their home so that they don't have to go to a facility. Self-sufficiency and self-determination. So just to, again, to just give people a little bit more independence and choice of their life. So that's the definition. Within the one we sent out to you guys, we kind of had two choices. We were trying to figure out how to do the financial limits. One was just to increase the expenditures to $25,000, so just go up a little bit. The other was to combine it with home modifications and have a cap of $50,000. So if you use it all in assistive technology, then you wouldn't have enough for home modifications and vice versa, but just to give people more flexibility going forward. Do you guys have any questions or feedback?
Limitations on home modifications, otherwise, what else are we, 25,000?
Right, so if this went to 25,000, home modifications would stay the same. If this changed, then they'd be lumped together and you could use it as you saw fit. And we thought that this could be a good idea because, you know, if someone needs more, if they need a larger home modification, that'll allow them to do it. If they need more assistive technology, that'll allow them. So, just to get more options. Yes, Bob?
Just so I understand, the first option says expenditures of $25,000 over the duration of the waiver.
5 years. 5 years.
Meaning the approved, I got you. So when this one's approved, it's 5 years, I got you.
Right.
Thank you.
So it's whatever, you know, if you guys have feedback on which option you think would work better, just let us know. Or if you have any other questions. You want to do both? All right, you guys can vote if you want.
You want to bat it around
Would
first?
you go back
then?
to Amy? Would you go back? It's fun.
And it's in front of you, if that helps.
Right.
That's one of the things that Anika's passed out to you, if that helps at all, so that you're not flipping between the slides.
And maybe I should know this already, but in terms of the, in rethinking and looking at what the service limitations would be for either one, did we look at averages of what folks might need? Have we, just remind me what the methodology was on choosing 25,000, for example?
Well, we chose 25,000 basically because we heard that the limitation of 15 was too low.
Okay.
So we just thought that bumping it up or combining it in a way to access more. It's one of those things that we want people to use more. So if we looked at how it's being used now, we might not get a true indication of what people do. Do you have a question, Susan? I saw your-
I just want to make sure, this goes outside the cost band, right?
Right.
Outside your budget.
Base budget.
Add-on,
Base
yeah.
budget.
It's an add-on.
Right.
Right, so if it wouldn't go towards, if a person spent $50,000 in 1 year on all of those things, or some combination of
They'd still
them,
be able to get their basic service plan, whatever that consisted of.
right, it doesn't count against that.
Good point.
Should that be clarified?
It will be in the larger document, if you will, because we're gonna have to identify all of the base versus the add-on.
And I think it's listed as an add-on now, so that would
But, so yeah, we do differentiate that in a section, but that's a very good point, that you're not spending your whole budget on a whole month.
Right, and it's that way now, right, in the current waiver?
Yes, it's
Right.
an add-on.
It's an add-on, so it doesn't count against the 135 in a year.
Well, it counts against the 135.
It does?
Today it
So if you
does.
spent $20,000 today on a home mod, it counts as against the 135, so that 20,000 less you can get in support?
Correct.
So it is part of the budget.
It's part of the budget, but it wouldn't be part, so.
So when we did the resource allocation piece, when Burns and them came in, and I'm sorry I missed that, there was a crazy CMS thing that day, but you have certain services that will be under like a base budget, that everyone can get under their base budget. And then there's gonna be, and then there's other services like this, which are add-on services to that, which would be over the top of that base. So like when you're doing your basic grocery store list, you know, when there's a storm, apparently you need all this bread, because I don't know what you do with the bread, but you need this bread. So you get bread, eggs, and milk in your base budget, and then if you're lucky and there's stuff left on the shelf, you can also, you know, get some chicken, I don't know, but it's kind of structured like that. You've got your base, and then your add-on services.
So it does count.
Towards the 135?
Towards-
It does, I guess it does. I
And
missed
so
that.
it
But
doesn't
would not
ex-
count towards your base.
Does it extrapolate across the 5 years of the waiver, or is it just
It
in that
can.
1 year?
It
It
depends
can
how you
extract-
spend it.
So you can.
Well, if you
pull
spend
all
it in
at
the
once.
first year,
It's for the life of the waiver, so.
right, so does what I'm asking is, does the 50,000 count against your 135 only in the year you spend it, or across the life of the waiver?
It's a 5-year limit, so life.
So you could spread that cost over it to,
We could theoretically build it like that.
if you wanted to,
Yeah.
or needed to.
But that seems like a good idea.
So basically what we're doing, we're just
Otherwise,
restricting
project.
25,000.
Well, we raised the limit, and how do you want to spend it? Do you want it 25 and keep it to home mod versus vehicle, assistive technology, pardon me, or do you want to combine that so people have a little more flexibility in how they figure out what they're going to do with
A little
it?
broader basin.
Those are the two choices essentially that he's posing, yeah. B, option B, Cindy's
Much
voted.
flexible for consumers and families.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, under option A, if we wanted, if somebody needed to do a home modification, that's a separate application, correct?
Right, correct.
If you go with option A, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what would be the argument for option A? Just
They're more distinct. You have a pot for this and a pot for that.
so to help people understand.
It's the difference between restricted and unrestricted funds.
Right.
We've
Right,
restricted
it's
it to
more-
25 to this pot and that pot. 50,000 means that you can use it for anything within that broader array of requests.
I think the argument for A is control, I think the argument for B is flexibility.
Yep.
Which one do you want to give?
Supposed to be more flexible. Right.
Right. Okay. So,
I'm a flexible kind of woman, contrary to popular belief.
so we'll take that as we'll.
Right, Bob?
Right. You guys want B, if you do have a disagreement, you don't speak up, of course, just email Renee and she'll get that to us.
Right now, the base amount is 20,000.
No, no, you're talking about the base budget or the base
No,
for this?
for
I'm
this.
sorry, yes.
We're at currently is
Yes,
20,000.
pardon me. Yeah, we haven't set base, what the base budgets will look like in the model yet. We hope to have that by the end of March.
We don't have a telephone.
No, wait, don't do rest yet.
Yeah.
So, because your number one request that we had a lot of robust conversation about during the first time this came out is, instead of the Dynavox, the ability to do an app on
And I've had
an iPad. So how is that, just walk me through whether that would work here or not.
Okay, let's see. Well, could that be an aid for daily living? Or an aid to increase in-bed living?
Could be.
Yeah.
If you're using it for video modeling.
Yes.
I am good
Could
at
it-
everything until you get to exclusion on number 4, because that's precluded.
Me too.
Yeah, that would do it more efficiently.
Which one are you out here?
The exclusion for number 4.
Number 4.
So that's just the computer will not be authorized to improve socialization and education. But that doesn't speak to an app or a program. That's just a physical.
We're talking the hardware, not software.
Right, like a laptop.
The hardware is important.
So it's a computer when it's used for education, so like for me to learn math,
Right.
because that's what my IEP says I need. But it's not necessarily if I'm using an iPad for budgeting for my own budget. And that might not be appropriate for me to do if I'm 10, but it certainly is if I'm 20.
Right.
Okay.
For video
So
modeling.
the key there is in the descriptive of socialization, education skills, recreation, or diversion activities, or any other person.
So what would we want to pay for a computer to do? Would we want to pay for a computer to do socialization?
What does that mean?
I
I would think
think so.
socialization would be using a computer to do Facebook.
For example, for Facebook,
Or
Skype.
Social interaction?
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
bigger question is,
So-
you might think that.
So here's one of,
Same thing.
so on some of the virtual monitoring, you do use computers, right, to communicate back and forth with somebody in a call center that you're okay.
Right.
And so if it's excluded there for the purchase, then you've screwed yourself on the virtual monitoring aspects of what assistive technology can do. Because it will require a computer. Now, maybe it has to be built into the plan that way.
I guess one of the questions would be if a computer or an iPad was purchased for monitoring purposes,
It's okay.
can you use it for socialization while it's there? I mean, it's.
I'm not going to police that.
Right, but that would be no reason to police that. And then I would think that the intent wasn't to get it for the socialization, the intent was to get it for the monitoring. And the other things are,
And communication.
surrounding.
That's the other big thing.
Yeah.
You need it for communication.
So we allow that for
Communication,
communication,
right.
right?
So it's all in how the plan's written.
Right.
That's right.
What did we agree the diversion activities are? What that particular phrase means?
Minesweeper,
Right, diversion activities with
Sorry?
Minesweeper, World of Warcraft, Solitaire.
video games,
Gaming.
gaming.
You can't buy it for game.
Right, so you have to buy it, but you can still use it if you have the iPad and get your app for it.
Nobody's going to know that you downloaded Minesweeper on there.
No.
So
Actually,
what-
it comes with it, doesn't it, Minesweeper?
I think it does.
We'll have to read it.
You can't delete it, apparently. See, there's.
What if you added the word solely after authorized in the first line of 4?
There you go.
Okay, we can use it.
And just to keep it clear, are we talking specifically computer hardware?
Yes.
Because at that point, you might want to throw in the word hardware just
Okay.
Yeah.
to keep it from getting confused.
Okay, so computer hardware will not be authorized solely to improve socialization.
Pretty sure I got lost from it too.
Yeah, and I had a question on the last phrase of that sentence. Or to be used by
Right,
any
like
other
David.
person
No, I know.
other than the person. If a have tech used it to show the picture schedule or a person.
Right, but
So
again,
your modification, does that fall
it's
under
again
that or not?
solely not for that reason. Right.
Well, it's also, and we've got like a token system, but a have tech would use, having hands-on, it would not be included under that. And I
Right.
guess solely does help.
Yeah, I think solely.
Solely, yeah.
So one of the things that sometimes comes up is a differentiation between school-aged and whether something's being bought for school purpose, which is oftentimes excluded because that's Department of Education stuff. Are you trying to get at any of that here? Is
I think with the educational skills, that's kind of what we were trying to get out.
Say that.
Right, but we can clarify that for people who are still in the public school system.
It just seems like there's always, that's one of the hard lines, is that if the school could or should pay for it, then it's not on the Medicaid side.
Okay.
But if you've got an adult who needs it for educational purposes, that should be allowed.
But then they wouldn't be
Or
covered
not.
in a school system.
Then
Right,
the-
so we have to
Right,
clarify.
so maybe if we, instead of educational, we
Yeah.
really talked about a public
We're,
question.
we are talking
School age.
public education or formal?
For educational purposes.
Public education
Well,
during those years.
I mean, you could at a charter school, I mean, this goes,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Homeschool, private school.
But those, that's still
school age children.
That's still within the school age, right?
So I think we're more interested in where the dollars are flowing
Yeah.
than the age of the person.
But if you're
I think there's dollars elsewhere.
I wouldn't even say that, I say theoretically, like you're in college or in community college, on the way for taking a class for some other service.
Could just be secondary. Then you would want it covered or
Would
not
or
covered?
not, I would think,
I would think we would, if they're in secondary.
Yeah,
education, because that's
absolutely.
not-
If I'm the judge reviewing the appeal on this, and I see skills for developing independent living and education, are they the same thing?
Okay. So we'll just clarify them. Any other feedback for assistive technology?
There's, I think to what John was speaking to, there's probably some language already that says all of that stuff around the educational system in the current
Yeah, I
definition.
think we, yeah.
in general, that general section.
Maybe, I can't see it, but it's
It
there.
does, you're right, it does say something
Yeah.
to who, yeah.
And we did say all that would go in that big general section about the, just in, not necessarily in the definitions, but in,
In the general.
The explanations.
It's funded
Right.
somewhere else
Yeah.
than where the repair of last resort
That's
essentially.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the
Any
issue-
other, I'm sorry,
On the
sorry.
issue of connectivity charges, these are seem to be very important, but do we need to be aware of the potential for abuse? Because if abuse is found or suspected, it might impair the ability to use those connectivity charges, or those connectivity devices or services. In other words, if somebody wants to connect in some other way and then finds this loophole or whatever you will to have it paid for, are we dealing with redundant connectivity like that? I mean, is it the same connectivity that we all use in other ways?
So, can you explain a little bit further what you, I don't think I'm following. So you're talking about, are we paying for
I wouldn't
connectivity
want
two
to.
times?
I wouldn't want something that's very useful to be vulnerable to criticism due to abuse.
Okay,
This is another way of putting it.
okay.
Abused by another person or by that same person?
You buy the iPad, you buy
Or
a
by
family member, so on.
People in the setting.
Yeah, you said it, right.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a way to do that, but it seems like something that might come up later to threaten the ability.
I think in the assistive technology world.
Okay, so we'll get to that.
it's hard to police. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody to have a delusion that that could be policed. I mean, you could even monitor it, but you'd still have a hard time policing who was using the iPad or who was using the computer.
But it's the kind of thing that if you've got it in there, you can figure out maybe with PI or whatever, I mean, if it's egregious, maybe the care coordinator will figure, I don't know.
Well, they're not computer technicians.
No.
Right?
But like if they're on site, they see something.
Well, but if it's circumstance that I've run across in the past where somebody received a piece of technology, got an iPad, and brother walks in and says, oh, cool iPad, and walks away with it.
Yeah.
If it's not in your possession or you can verify that you've got it, then somebody else does. The question is, at that point, is this something that the individual needs to deal with, or do we need to file out a criminal complaint and say somebody stole it? It gets dicey.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, just because you put it in here doesn't mean it can be policed, but.
Well, but people think they can police it then, and they spend a lot of time chasing that monkey, they'll never catch it. And it's time that's not spent doing things that could help people, because people are afraid that they're going to get audited if they don't chase it, right? And so it becomes this sort of thing that the system drives people nuts with, that it just does, it's of no value added.
But to Mr. Owens' point, I mean, how would you then, I mean, in
How do you
general,
do it now?
protect the.
How do you do it now when you buy a piece of equipment and DME police that it went to the person it was purchased for and it stays in their
You don't
custody?
police it on the front end, if you will, it's more of a back end complaint, you deal with it kind of
Right.
an issue.
When they call and say this thing is not here anymore, somebody
Yeah.
stole it,
Yeah,
so that would be the way I would suggest it stay.
Right. And the connectivity is when it's for the functioning of an item or a system. So again, it's for that item or system. If someone can somehow figure out how to run their cable off of that, I mean, I don't know if they, that would be very hard to figure out, I feel. But because it's for the function of the item or the system, I think it's work out pretty well.
so you're saying it's covered in the top part for the functioning in the definition of narrative?
So in the past, there has been great scrutiny over communication devices,
Yeah.
and them having to have oversight and recommendation. Back in the day when I worked with the division, that was one of the big things, and it got more and more restrictive where the speech language pathologists had to make the recommendation, da-da-da.
Back when you were doing that, they actually had communication.
We had speech language pathologists back then even.
We didn't have cell phones though, Bob.
I'm sorry.
We didn't have real cell phones then. I remember those days. I had a bag phone. That's how bad it was.
So anyway, we're cool with all of that. If it's an iPad, you know what I'm saying? There was this great scrutiny placed over approval of these special technology devices if they thought they were going to be misused. And it sounds like we've opened that up, and that's a good thing for people.
Yeah.
So I guess we should just say, okay, and leave it at that.
Part of the world.
But it is
But families have to
tricky.
find that in non-traditional ways still, for us to supply families with iPads. We don't go through DMA.
But it is solely for the purpose of the individual supported of the
Right.
Medicaid recipient.
Correct.
And
Not
it's
brother
also number
playing
one.
games.
But if you can't police that.
Is there any other discussion from the outside? From the outside?
People that have been locked out because that's infection.
Open the door and see.
Well, if you would come on time, you wouldn't be locked out.
I did have the tardy slip.
But like, Rose, you've already, I don't know if anybody else has any input.
Is that the blue job?
Covers? Okay.
You guys think you don't want to buy it?
Oh, it needs to cover life groups. What are they called, life groups?
I've seen so many broken ones. Kids get mad.
Gotta get the ones that don't break.
The super hard
And
days.
we need to vote on 2,000, it seems like there was pretty much a consensus on option B.
Yeah.
So everybody, all in favor of option B?
Aye.
Everybody, all right, you good?
I'm good.
And Frank is still not.
So we'll do respite. Okay, so we're going to do respite now. If you can pull out your definitions. We don't have a PowerPoint for this. We emailed this one out as well. We haven't gotten that much feedback. Some of the main points is that we want to build respite into licensed and unlicensed AFLs. Another change is that we want the individual to choose to be able to access the person receiving service. If they feel like they want a break, then they can kind of ask for that to happen. Since it's in a residential, to try to control, to make sure there's not double billing, if it's a residential per day rate, then residential can't be billed on the same day. And we were thinking of like a head on the bed concept, like midnight or something, and 24 hours from there. But those are the main changes. We just want it to be so people can access it more if they want to, and then allow it in those AFL and licensed and unlicensed AFLs. And this one was also emailed out before.
So this was a read.
Right. But we never presented it. So.
Oh, I see.
And then, so then where it's more explicit that it can be used for planned or emergency events, because that's been an issue in the past. So because we want people to use it, we want them to be able to plan for it.
Good work. That has been a big issue for many years.
Thank you. We've been working hard on these.
What is it?
Where did you see that?
Bottom of the second page. Under
Yeah, that's
Financial
right. Yeah.
The federal match.
the federal reach.
Maybe we should say that. Figure this out real fast.
Well, spell it out.
Well, I want the emphasis federal financial protection.
I mean, you say it just cannot be
Federal
used
match.
for.
We can say that.
I mean, maybe just say this cannot be used for.
So we're trying to take out some of that.
The,
Who knows what 5,600 Bs are? I can't recall.
I tried to look that up.
A's for people with mental illness, C's for people with IDD. I don't know what B is.
B is for children under 18 IDD.
Okay.
what is it?
It's under 18.
Did you just make that up?
The other is over 18.
Under 18.
We'll make sure we know what that is.
Children under 18 with IED.
Bam.
She did, not me, I did great. We don't have many of those.
We don't. And it actually says, it's an IDD group home for minors, primary diagnosis is DD. But it's children, it's kids, adolescents.
You should be proud of him, he's done a great job.
Just looking for clarity purposes, if we've already set the staff qualifications, never mind. I just read.
Love it when you answer your own question.
Makes me feel like I'm actually getting something. Never mind.
Somebody's listening.
Discussion is whether the BC differences occurs on the 18th birthday or the 19th.
For the what?
I would say it's
18.
I would say 18 birthday.
18 or
It's under 18 or 18 and over.
Usually it's the big, so yeah, it'd be the 18th birthday.
Yep.
Under 18.
Under 18 or 18 and over.
So, any other comments from respite definition. We must be getting better, the conversations are getting shorter. Good work.
The weather thing is better this morning,
So,
Remember they were trying to pay us.
When they tried to call, we didn't answer.
Prices
that.
are now-
The deal is with that.
That's different. Yeah, that's why it's different.
But I think you did go to the hearings on it.
so we're going to move on to day supports, which is the newer one, then number 3. You guys haven't seen this, but you have to print it up. Okay, so you guys have the day supports definition in front of you. We have a PowerPoint. We just kind of came to a finishing point with this on Wednesday, or something that we felt like we could bring you. So it's not perfect, but we'll go through it. So we think of day supports. We're trying to think of what it is. So we think of it as one option for a meaningful day, but not the only option. And you'll see some of that in the definition when we go through it. We think of it primarily as a group facility-based service, but does allow for individual supports based on certain criteria. We wanted to focus on enabling the individual to attain and maintain his maximum self-sufficiency, increase self-determination, and enhance the person's opportunity to have a meaningful day. So we wanted to do that. We want it to be structured so that each person has the opportunity to discover his or her own skills, interests, and talents in the community. So again, very, based on the person, what they want. And then we still wanted to include some pre-vocational activities because we know that exists in the system. Again, why is it important? We wanted to assist people with acquiring, retaining, and improving socialization and daily living skills, enabling them to have a meaningful day of their choice, so not just going to somewhere and doing what everyone else is doing, but actually having it being based on what their preferences are. And again, with all the other services, the waiver in general, we wanted to maintain and improve self-sufficiency and maintain and improve self-determination. Then it would again be subject to the limits and sets of services, which we'll have to more fully determine later on, or we'll remain the same. So some of the main points from this definition, if you look, so okay. So one of the main points that we kind of were throwing around is that we want it to be predominantly a group service, but then allow for individual. We know that this is a difficult conversation, and that it's, we wanted to make it more open of how someone could get individual supports. So in the second page, the second to the last paragraph, no, that's not it. Sorry, guys. Okay, so it's the top one. Individual services are available to meet documented needs. These circumstances may include provision of behavioral, psychiatric, those types of things. But we want it to be basically for behavioral and medical. And if it's been documented, then we'll just use that documentation. We had some conversations about using a doctor's note, but we thought that that would be every year. So if someone's condition isn't changing, we just want it to be documented that they have these needs and then move forward with it. We also feel like, as the SIS goes, statewide, and if someone hits those categories and their clinical description allows for it, then that's great. That'll solve support of the situation. But there will also be people outside of that who might need frequent changing or feeding tubes, things like that. So we want to allow for those individuals to receive individual as well.
Well, the ongoing things would be on MR2 that the doctor signs. So that gives you some coverage from
Right,
the
the level of care. Right.
from the state perspective. But I guess the question again, that I have on this, if someone has a pretty severe physical disability, to me, that's not clearly stated in here. In proportions of their activity and learning, they need assistance, physical assistance. I don't see that included in this group of descriptors.
So medical concerns, you don't see that as?
It's
It's not medical.
It's really not medical. It's
It's
physical
a fact-
limitations.
Yeah.
So would you guys say, okay,
Somebody could be a congenital disability. It could be cerebral palsy, for example, where maybe they can do part of an activity independently, but they need individual help for a portion of the activity. You wouldn't want to knock them out of being able to, based on that. We've got to give them some kind of special accommodation sometimes.
so would you say medical, behavioral, or physical concerns?
Yeah.
And then leave it at that?
I think that would help, yes.
So I'll take that as a suggestion of that. I think we were thinking of that as,
Ambulatory line.
Someone may have a chronic health.
okay. But again, we wanted it just to be documentation and then also when the Cisco, so kind of comparing those two and not leaving anyone out. So we'll take that back.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
It's a word issue, but sometimes words matter. In terms of the physical disability piece, it seems maybe it's not a concern, but just a support need. You know what I'm saying? If I have a physical disability, maybe it's not best to call it a concern. It's really more of what my support needs may be.
Okay.
Transfer for toileting or
Right.
like maybe hand over hand to help assist with an activity.
Just sometimes, and I understand what Rose is saying, I'm just afraid sometimes if you say it's, people think of medical as they've got to be sick that moment.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Right.
so you're making it even broader as support, just so they,
Well,
if you say support need, I think that's good.
I was really sort of framing that around the physical disability piece. But, I mean, it could be medical, right?
It's medical support, yeah, because that would be maybe more in line with the diabetes, somebody with diabetes or some other kind of condition that requires ongoing monitoring of a medical condition to support them to be in a setting, right? So you're really more capping on the
concern.
word concerns,
Right.
Yeah.
instead of using the word concerns, regardless of which one of the three it is.
Right.
It's really more about that it's a support need,
Okay.
not a concern, just to be a little more politically correct.
Right, you got it. That's good.
Right?
Be a little person friendly.
With that, okay,
And then,
or that.
the next part that's kind of a larger change is that individuals who are over 18, who are new to the service, and this is the third paragraph on the first page, we want them to have the opportunity to be educated or to explore other meaningful day options. And we had a concern that if people are coming out of their school system because it's safe, they might just default to a day program and not be educated or know what other things are available in the community. We want this to be documented in the plan, so what we were struggling with is that we don't want it to then go to UM and saying, well, you don't have enough documentation, we're not going to approve it. But we do feel confident with the new UM process, it's going to be more open and softer on the front end, that we'll be able to do that. And then in that reflective analysis, we can go back if the MCO chooses or whoever, they can decide, oh, are these people actually being exposed to different things or is that something that's not happening? But we felt that that was important to try to do.
It's coming straight from those home and community-based standards that are going to have to be followed anyways.
Right.
To show that choice.
I'm a little concerned about the language is must explore all meaningful day options. We're putting the individual, if that person coming out of high school knows exactly where they want to go and exactly what they want to do, and we're telling them, no, you need to go look at something else. And
Well,
we're trying to look at the real world. The real world is, if I choose to go there, then that's where I choose to go.
And I think what we're trying to say is that sometimes people default to something that looks familiar, so we at least want them to be exposed or educated on on other options. So you don't, if you decide, and explore, I don't think we necessarily have to think about that as actually going to some place before, but, actually having information so that you can make a good choice.
Maybe the word all is the problem.
Yeah.
So must explore.
They must be presented with information, something that they can review, but if I choose not to go there, isn't that the essence of what we're talking about is?
Well, I'm thinking about it, I want to say, what John is, to try to, if somebody's coming out of school and they already know that they're going to community college to learn how to be a bricklayer, because that's what they want to do, but we really want them to, be forced to go out and look at a lot of other things. Maybe the answer is that they're exposed to, maybe bricklayers a lot, example, but maybe they're coming out to want to do something that is something different than that, but what we want to do is that you're exposed to options or something.
Right.
We want to support choice, not.
We want to support informed, as much as possible, informed choice.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll try to.
But I think the concept is great. I think it's maybe the all is the part.
Yeah.
Okay.
So was
Right,
there a
because
reason,
who determines what's the all for?
is there a reason you chose age 18?
Well, we felt like people who are in high school, they might go, or who are young. So one of the reasons is for developmental day. If someone needs developmental day, you don't want them to have to explore other opportunities if developmental day is really the only option. And then we were thinking if someone's already in school and they have like a break for whatever reason, if that's something that's working well, we don't want to necessarily disrupt all of that at that point.
Right. The reason why I ask, because the day activity or ADVP license is 16.
Okay.
And so for that sort of pre-vocational during the summer, this type of activity could happen during that summer break at that type of facility to do pre-vocational skill building prior to, starting at 16, because that's where the licensure starts.
Right.
And so that's why I'm asking really, couldn't it be 16 for that age group, so they really are getting exposed prior to the time school is finished for them, which could actually be at age 22. So, 18 just sort of seems kind of weird because it either seems like it should be 16 or 22. 18's more.
How do you guys feel about 16 or 22?
16.
Yeah, because a lot of people come out early.
The other thing about 16 that might be something for your group to talk about, or this group to talk about even is, so it's going to be cheaper for me as a family member to purchase group than individual. And so when I'm managing my own budget, if providers developed that kind of resource for me and it was doing this really great pre-vocational thing and exposure, when I got to the point where I'm finishing school, I might be ready for supported employment because now I know what kind of job I want to do.
Right.
Right? So this would be a potentially, for some people, a better choice during their high school years as a summer kind of thing to do,
Okay.
or maybe even after school to get me ready for that transition in life, which today does not exist in our service array for the vast majority of areas, if not all.
Okay. That makes sense.
You take a look at the word explore, is that going to be assumed to be that exploring is actually getting involved in that activity and doing it before you can say no, or is it being presented with information that is reasonably good for the level of understanding, say, okay, I like this idea, I don't like that idea.
So what would you suggest?
Thesaurus and start looking at it.
On that.
So to be educated on?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last major change is that we put that it can start or end at the facility. So that means,
Connection to adding in something licensed. I'm just curious. Why is
I
that?
think because it's a licensed facility,
Why does
that it
it
has
have
to
to?
start at the license. No, so
If you're providing transportation, where does it start?
Yeah, that was one of the issues that I brought up
Yeah.
was problematic.
Okay,
You
so I
start
thought about that.
at the.
So we're
license
saying now you
facility.
can either start it or you can end, but you have to go to the facility at some point.
Why?
But why?
Because it's a facility-based service, right? So,
Why couldn't it be the rec center? That's a facility.
but would that be licensed?
Why does it have to be licensed? What requires
Because they programs generally licensed.
Right, and maybe it's that it's provided by a licensed provider, is I think the language we talked about. Because then you have, for example, in our organization, we do a lot of community outings. So what if that day we're gonna meet, because it's a longer trip, we're gonna meet at this site, and that's what we're gonna do for the day. It kind of seems like, you know, like, well, we have to say it started here or ended here. So we're gonna have to come back here and do that, where we could naturally just disperse or do what is natural in a community setting, which is to go somewhere, meet up with the group, do something, and then go on from there. Because that's how my day that day should be. I think if you put in that it has to be provided by a licensed facility provider, a licensed provider, you know, then the provider's making sure that all the things are there and in place.
Well, we'll just need to check on that.
Okay.
So I understand why you're saying. I think that what I've heard from people a lot, and I think that is the same kind of thing, is that, and then you wind up limit the creativity of the provider to do some things that probably will be better.
But let us just check to make sure there's not some other reason why that's in.
Because it didn't used to be, do you remember, Rose? It didn't used to be in there, and it changed during that waiver. So you
Well, it used to say, I think, y'all make me go way back in my brain, which is a scary place to be, but I thought my interpretation of originates was not a literal translation into you have to physically be there, right?
And what did it mean?
just what you're saying. But it's from
Right,
By
that-
the licensed
And that the provider was licensed, it was they were the responsible entity for everything that happened with that service for that person.
The wording is wrong, but it's an idea of who has responsibility for the individual. Mom and dad, or at the care home, or wherever you are, has that custody and responsibility. As soon as that transfers over to the next party, now we begin program day. And the question is, what is the appropriate language for that? But the concept is, where does that responsibility for the individual lie? And when does that transfer from one party to the next?
So it looks to me like you got it right in the third paragraph where it says transportation to and from the individual's home, day support facility, and travel within communities including the payment rate. That's good. Reading on. Transportation to and from the licensed road responsible for the day program. Right, okay, it is expected the individual to start or end the day at the licensed facility except post-secondary or adult basic skills. An example that a member of mine gave me was that they were like a member of a mobile crew. And the mobile crew started their work 5 minutes from the individual's home. Yet the licensed day program was 30 minutes from the individual's home. So they had to spend the time of the staff and the individual meaningless wasting their life.
Identical day?
A non-meaningful day, driving to the day program, you see what I'm saying? And then back to the mobile site.
What you're saying makes common sense, but we would just like to see some due diligence and make sure there's not some reason why that has to be in there.
So if you hit a bump on this point, if you can reach out and we'll try to get people that really do this, help us come up with how to avoid your bump.
I used to run the transportation program, which is part of the AP program, that is exactly that circumstance, that if we were bringing them back to the facility, we were putting an individual on a bus for an
We don't
additional
want
hour.
to fail the common sense test, but
You know, and it's actually a way to look at this also goes back to the Department of Labor standard, which is we can assign somebody where their point of origin is. If we want to assign you to start work, your workday begins at this location, and we can move it around at will as part of an assignment. It works along the similar principles. Where the day starts is a matter of determination, not of.
The billing starts when they pick them up.
Yes, doesn't it start?
It starts
And
when
you're
they
not
pick
in
them
the
up.
facility when they.
So like I said, the third paragraph,
Paragraph's inconsistent.
Well, but I'm going to argue on that piece for just a second about the transportation piece.
Well,
Because I think what I've heard from providers, especially in rural communities, the transportation is, I guess I'm trying to find out why it's so definitely tied and linked. And for example, we don't have a fleet of vehicles at our agency. And we have individuals who are in wheelchairs, who need transportation, and they're over 50 pounds. So then that would require that I have 2 people who would go out and lift them. we can't provide transportation in those situations. It becomes so cost prohibitive. So what I would question, and what I was hoping that we would look at some of those limitations of transportation and of what people are asked to provide. I have somebody who is up in a rural area. By the time they go around and pick up everybody up to, a lot of the day hours are gone now. Of what that time can be spent working on some other things. So I would just ask about kind of understanding a little bit why they have to be tied together, and then is there some exceptions?
Because it was set into the rate, when they set the rate for this service. Maybe it's not enough for some of the folks you're talking about, maybe we need to, and we can certainly talk about that. Part of the reason why it was set into this service is because it would not fall under non-emergency medical transportation under any of the categories that would count for, which basically for behavioral health services are pretty well confined to therapy. It's a doctor visit, like going to see a psychiatrist or such a thing. So these folks, unless you figure out some other transportation kind of thing, they will not fall under that policy. Maybe there should be an exception. I don't know. I mean, yeah, sure, absolutely. But that's why. That's the context.
Yeah, and I think that to me was like the shame of this one, because it was also far out, you know. So then what's the limit of how many miles is a provider expected to then transport within a reasonable range? You know, I have somebody who's in another city, another county, who wants us to still transport them. I can't do that. You know, that's such a
Ask for a rate
cost.
enhancement to the MCO.
Yeah, I mean, and even with the transportation of somebody
Maybe I'll give you one.
in a wheelchair, you know, you have to have accessible vehicles, you know, all of those types of things that this woman wasn't able to end up coming to our program because she could have access to transportation service, but because it was coming to a day program, she could no longer get that.
I think we've run versus
Can you speak
residential,
louder?
versus a residential provider. If a residential provider has the ability in the van, they have to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a tiered way to try to get to, I see
Right.
both sides, because
Yeah.
residential, you know, you've got other folks in the home, you know, but I also see the fact that, you know, they've got the ability to do the transportation.
Right.
So I found the comment that my member sent me on this subject, and he said, services inserted should be what he recommends. Services may start in the community if there is supporting documentation to indicate that the effectiveness of the individual's day would be better utilized within the immediate community of the individual, time management of the individual's day, and the person-centered choices. Once the individual reaches the community designation, confirm program operations. In other words, you get in the plan that this is the plan, that this can start. It's not just arbitrary and capricious. It's not that we're doing this. It's because the person's work starts closer to their home, it's documented in their record, and it should cover us, and we should not have to do unmeaningful day.
Well, and I would suggest it's not just about that part. If there's a specific, things happen, there's activities that go on. So if you limit it, I don't think it should have to say, well, in everybody's plans, well, because there's an activity possibly. I understand in that situation that it's a set every day, you know, this is going to happen. But what about for those things that happen randomly? Because that's another part of the home and community-based standards is that things should happen just like they do in life, you know. Oh wow, we got free tickets to this stuff. We're all going to do this today, you know, because it's come up if people want to do it.
What ought to happen in that circumstance is there ought to be a note that says, this day, this special thing happened. Right. And it should be allowed.
Here's what I'm thinking, is that we might find a way that's easier to say that than being I mean, I'm serious, than being so prescriptive.
You gotta have
I
everything
think
in
that's,
place.
why don't we do it?
Yeah, we're open. It just doesn't need to be, as it currently states in paragraph 3, that it has to start, originate from the day program. Thank you. Well, this is the big deal to my member, and I need to be sure I carried this water. Thank you kindly.
New topic.
Yes.
So this seems to really talk more about the meaningful day kind of thing on the adult side of the equation.
Well, can we go back to transportation for just a second, because I don't know if we finished thinking about that thoroughly, or did we?
I mean, I hear it as a rate issue, but I also, in my head, and this is not very strange, but this is just my kind of I think of it as like camp, kind of, right? Like you as a parent are responsible for transporting to camp or paying the extra amount to camp or to after school or whatever, kind of those extracurricular sort of activities. The school system is responsible for providing transportation up until 12 o'clock, right? So this is outside of that concept. So I think that's where.
So the residential provider.
Right, yeah. That's what's in it. Why is it not the residential or the family?
Because of a family can't provide it.
Then,
And it's an
but
adult.
you go through some sort of tiered system.
It's like an algorithm.
Right, yeah.
So like if you have this, basically it'll be the residential or the family, but if the family can't do it, then it falls down to the next option. So like.
But
So-
that
so
doesn't
one-
necessarily speak to your point, because in her example, those folks were the hardest to, with the two
They're
people, because
isolated.
they're over 50 pounds.
Right, you
That
go
doesn't
into a
help.
lot of other factors, but if there's got to be, to me, it seems like an option for folks to have another transportation service they could use, because you're gonna have situations and organizations that, aren't gonna have, like I said, the fleet of vehicles. They aren't gonna have, in rural areas, they may not have access to a transportation system. So what are the options? Could there be a transportation provider or service? Why does it, can that be separate? So people who choose to do that, or if you don't want to do any of the transportation, I'll take this rate because we're not doing transportation.
That's a much bigger conversation,
Okay.
because that would be a, non-emergency medical transportation is I don't have my filters on, that's good, big deal. So,
That's
we've got,
Medicaid
There's Medicaid money available for that.
there is some other Medicaid money available, but it's only for doctors type visits, office visits. This is not one of the services that would fall under that. Policy is defined in the state plan and by the feds. So to your point, it would be hard to get the federal match. It'd be hard to make it a service, and I mean, there's limitations, unfortunately.
Could there be exceptions?
I think the real solution there is a rate enhancement on this type of person's rate for day supports individual.
So is this something we need to take back to rate setting?
Well, I mean, no, the MCO has the authority to do that, don't we? I mean,
No, you absolutely
so, I mean,
can.
if we had this woman that you describe, let's say it's a woman over 50 pounds in some remote area that wanted this service, that was on innovations, I think that provider would put together, this is what it costs for her to get from Loyock in Currituck County to the day program nearest by. And we would really have to look at funding that, because that's what she needs, right? And we have that flexibility right now.
Well, yeah, but do they, I guess, do y'all, I guess is the other, do you all consistently across all nine? Because you're where, Smoky?
No, Centerpoint.
Centerpoint, have you engaged with them?
Well, this happened, a while back, but no, I didn't even know it would have been an option, to be honest with you, back then. I just saw it, a waiver advisory, our local one, where they were talking about that. It's the first time I saw it this past week, about even having an option to do anything
So
like that.
indicate, I mean, I agree with you, Cindy, but one of the issues to think about, and I don't think we can do that today, but so that rate enhancement makes good sense.
It's education, though.
The problem then, though, if we have a rate band that's determined by, so this person within a level 4 or whatever, do that, and day support basic is how we make a decision about what that rate band is.
Well, let's back up for a second, because I think that, and this is something else to think about, do you want to do it service by service, or if you're going to think about such a thing, do you want to think about it, there's other transportation inclusive policies.
Yeah, that was.
So the what?
This is not the only policy that
Right.
includes transportation.
And that was one of, and early on in some of the comments when I brought this to my group, was that transportation really needs to be looked at seriously, because it is a real big problem, like I said, when you have, especially if you're providing this group, right? So I have 3 different people in 3 different areas. How am I making sure all that's done, coordinated, and get in there. Or, like I said, if one area, and this was up in Smoky, I believe, they said they were told they had to provide the transportation, so that even if, like, say you've got 3 people coming from a group home, one's Innovation, 2 are State, why aren't they just bringing them all? It's easier for them, they're all coming from the same place, you know. It was like they were almost being forced into having to provide transportation because of the way it was written. So I think some of that, looking at what are the natural ways of transportation too, and then, I don't know, I know it's no simple problem, but I do think it's a big issue that I'm hearing time and time again when I brought it to my group about how are we supposed to do transportation when we're in such rural areas and sometimes going all over the place, you know?
Here's my suggestion, is that we take this table transportation to have another conversation about transportation in general, about how we want to approach it. How's that? Because I think as the more you describe, the more
Tell John Augusta to add a rural living band in his resource allocation.
the more we get in a place that I'm comfortable with.
Right.
Yeah, Medicaid's very sensitive about non-medical transportation.
The more we talk about it, the more I'm getting in a place that I think we probably are comfortable to have a conversation there about.
You know, there are resources.
So I think I might want to start.
You're outside of Medicaid now. You're looking at Department of Transportation,
Right, something kind of want to confirm maybe a little
DOT
bit.
match.
Because there's a lot of definitions.
Okay.
You're talking?
Let me know when that happens.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Cindy.
No
I
time.
just didn't think we were finished with that, I'm sorry.
I'm done with transportation, for sure.
Natural supports.
So the definition doesn't really talk a whole lot about what day supports means for kids or those under this age, and it's that developmental day thing up there at the top, that little extra special code. The current one doesn't either. So is the intent there not to get people, I mean, it doesn't really, it's very overly generic. So a lot of people just miss that. Hey, there's a thing you could do here with day supports group for children. If they're on the waiver.
What we were thinking is that it's an option, it's very specific, there aren't that many options, and that we would have more education around the definition to not spell out exactly what it does.
So where will that be published so that waiver recipients who have children understand that there is an option? Because if the criteria is all right here, then every kid that's on the waiver could get developmental day as an after-school deal, a whole lot cheaper than in-home skill building, which doesn't even offer a group option, that parents might choose. Not all, some, right? And it saves them money in their budget, but there's nothing that describes kind of that could be the thing that you could do.
So do you think that it would be beneficial just to have like a statement that it's available?
Well, we're going to talk about all this vocational stuff for adults. We want to talk about all this fun stuff for kids.
Okay, we can.
So how we
And they're out of
fun stuff
school.
for kids,
I mean, one of the biggest issues on the innovations waiver for kids is what do they do when summer hits and they're not in school. This is a great, cheap alternative that saves them money in their cost band that no providers really do on a broad scale. Some do here and there, I'm sure, but on a broad scale that could really be a really enriching thing to do in the summer that doesn't bust the budget when you fall into that sort of banding, base budget stuff. So I'm just suggesting that if it was a little bit more elaborately explained, it might be something that would be really great.
Okay, we'll bring that back. But for the adults, for the majority of the definition, are there any other comments, or do you think that we're on the right path?
Just one quick question around, or suggestion, around the vocational, and this may be in here for a reason, but I don't know. But for number 2, if this is sort of a, particularly thinking of Cindy's example of kind of a high school exploring career option type of conversation, is that would that be okay? Like say they went out and volunteered at a pet, whatever thing, tournament, thing like that, or they went to live, you know what I mean? Would that be limited? Because that is sort of pre-vote, because then you're exploring other work settings. Is that limited by number 2?
Well, if you're going to volunteer, wouldn't that be services include activities that are not directed at teaching jobs specific tasks? So you're learning the underlining what it means to be a worker, so it's not, I would think that would work. It's not.
And can I ask a question under number 1? It says they're not expected to join the general workforce or participate in transitional workshops within 1 year of service. So I guess my question would be, when do you know? Like, so I'm working with somebody and we decided, well, maybe we want to start exploring. So, well, we gotta wait 1 year. I mean, I'm just wondering about that, in my mind, I'm thinking.
More of like a guideline for, to figure out who might be appropriate for this versus maybe like support employment or something. I mean, of course, if like, it's not a hard and fast, you're stuck to it.
Yeah,
It's kind of like getting divorced, I mean, I was coming down to that 1 year, but it's
I
not.
agree, it will be applied that way.
Well, so.
It will absolutely
what
in the
about-
system be applied as, you can't do that for 1 year. Because it
Well,
says it right
God
here.
just fell out of the
1 year.
sky.
So,
And the 1 year is not mandatory?
I just don't know, what is that purpose of the 1 year? I
Okay,
mean,
just to kind of help give you some medical necessity parameters to try to start figuring, just to figure out who it's appropriate for. So how would you word it maybe that would be?
I would just say that, or not expected to join in the near future or something, so it doesn't give a specific time frame. That might be a better choice, just to say that, we don't see it happening right around the corner, but something may change. We may all of a sudden doing some exploration, we find out, wow, this is
He's really
perfect.
good. That can be
And
really
wow,
good.
somebody just called me about this job, and,
Yeah.
it's,
We would definitely not want to prevent that,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's not imminent.
Not imminent.
Not imminent, that's good. Very good, Bob, you always have such loyal words.
Well, I'm not sure that meets the test of simple language rather than two syllables, which you do.
That means almost like a meeting.
But now we can pull out a thesaurus.
okay.
But understood.
So we have some recommendations from you guys. Anything else? I think that we're on the right track.
So the concept of after school would be, you would add it into this with clarification of that. But I would also put in that same caveat of exploring other options if you don't
Right,
limit
yeah.
it to a
Okay.
facility-based program where you're going to go into one.
Right. Okay. So we'll do that.
So this also has that limit on sets. Did that change after, I'm sorry, I missed the HSRI thing. We had talked a couple of times about what is the value of having limits on sets when you have a budget. It keeps coming back through though in the documents, is there a limit on sets under this? What's the utility of that if you already have limitations based on this budget business we've talked about? I'm not sure I'm still tracking on that whole concept. Because it still seems like it's just building another way to control it by limiting the amount of it you can get within a budget that's already limited.
Right. Well, so we haven't really had any formal discussions of how that would change. We've just kind of been, I put it in there today.
Maybe that'd be a good topic for
But,
your
yeah, we could-
definition in general.
We need to bring that around to see how that will impact or if we choose to do it.
Good catch.
So my diaper friend is on his way. You want to just take a break for 10 or 15 minutes until he gets here?
Sounds like a great one.
Thank you, guys.
I didn't know what the hell he was doing.